Well, particularly for somebody who was famous for saying I'm a lady on television.
It's the best thing to wear when you're writing, lying in bed.
For more than a decade, David Walliams was one of the most familiar faces on British television. As a judge on Britain's Got Talent, he became known for his playful humor, dramatic reactions, and warm support for contestants. He often played the role of the funny uncle on the judging panel, balancing the sharp criticism of Simon Cowell and the softer tone of Amanda Holden. For many viewers, he seemed untouchable. Families watched him every weekend. Children read his books, and his public image was friendly and fun. He had also built a second career as a best-selling children's author, selling millions of copies and becoming a trusted name in homes and schools. At the height of his success, he appeared to have achieved something rare: fame, wealth, popularity, and strong connections across television and publishing. Yet fame can create a false sense of security. When someone is praised for many years, they may start to believe that nothing can damage their reputation. For Walliams, this sense of safety began to break in 2022 when reports emerged about comments he had made during talent show auditions in 2020. These comments were recorded when he believed he was speaking privately. Once transcripts of those remarks were leaked to the media, the public saw a different side of the man they thought they knew. The gap between his cheerful television persona and the words in the transcript shocked many people. The story was no longer about jokes and red buzzers. It became a story about trust, behavior behind the scenes, and whether public figures should be judged not only by what they show on camera, but also by what they say when they think no one is listening. The leaked transcript marked a turning point. According to media reports at the time, the comments included insulting language about contestants after they had left the stage. Some remarks were described as crude and disrespectful. Although Walliams apologized and said the words were part of private conversations that were never meant to be shared, the damage to his image was serious. His public brand had always been built on kindness and humor. Parents trusted him because of his work as a children's writer, and families saw him as a safe entertainer. When the transcript became public, many people felt disappointed rather than angry. Disappointment can be even more harmful than outrage because it breaks trust. By late 2022, it was announced that he would step down from his role on the talent show after 10 years. He was replaced by Bruno Tonioli, and the program continued without him. Television history shows that even long-serving stars can be replaced quickly. Once the news cycle moves forward, networks focus on protecting their programs rather than individual personalities. For Walliams, leaving the judging panel was not just about losing a job. It meant losing a weekly connection with millions of viewers. It also meant that headlines about him were now focused on controversy rather than comedy. The situation became more complicated when he decided to take legal action against Fremantle, the production company behind the show. His legal team argued that his microphone had been recording more than he realized, and that the leak had caused serious harm to his career and mental health. The lawsuit reportedly sought substantial damages. In public statements, he described feeling distressed and said the scandal had deeply affected him. This legal battle kept the story in the news for months, preventing the controversy from fading quickly. Even though a settlement was eventually reached and apologies were exchanged, the issue had already changed how many people saw him. While the television controversy was still fresh, attention began to shift toward his publishing career. For years, Walliams had been one of the most successful children's authors in Britain. He had sold tens of millions of books and had often been compared in commercial success to writers such as J.K. Rowling, Julia Donaldson, and even celebrity figures like Jamie Oliver in terms of brand recognition. His partnership with HarperCollins had lasted for many years and produced a steady flow of popular titles. However, reports in late 2025 claimed that there had been concerns within the publishing company about his behavior towards staff members. These reports described internal investigations and alleged complaints about workplace conduct. It is important to note that public information on such matters often comes from unnamed sources or media coverage, and companies rarely release full details. Still, the impact was clear when the publisher announced it would no longer release new titles by him. This decision surprised many in the industry. Ending a long and profitable partnership suggested that the company believed continuing the relationship could harm its reputation. Book sales reportedly declined sharply in early 2026, showing how quickly public opinion can affect commercial success. Retailers began to distance themselves, and invitations to literary events reportedly decreased. For an author whose success depended on trust from parents and schools, even small doubts could have large consequences. The shift from being a reliable bestseller to becoming a controversial figure happened faster than many observers expected. The controversy also touched his work with national broadcasters. In December 2025, he appeared in a previously recorded episode of Would I Lie to You? On the BBC. Reports later claimed that an offensive gesture during the recording led to further criticism. The broadcaster issued a public apology and confirmed that there were no immediate plans for future collaborations. When major institutions signal distance from a celebrity, it often shapes how the public responds. Broadcasters and publishers are careful about protecting their brands, especially when their audiences include families and children. The combined effect of losing a major television platform and a major publishing contract created a sense that Walliams had entered a period of isolation. Although he remained wealthy due to years of high earnings, money does not guarantee public approval. Fame depends on attention, trust, and ongoing support from powerful institutions. Without these, even a well-known figure can feel invisible. The discussion about his future became less about whether he would recover financially and more about whether he could recover culturally. In entertainment, cultural relevance matters deeply. Once audiences move on, returning to a former level of popularity can be extremely difficult. In response to the challenges, Walliams attempted to rebuild his creative life. In early 2025, he reunited with Matt Lucas, his former partner from Little Britain, to launch a podcast project. The podcast allowed him to speak directly to listeners without the filters of large television networks. Podcasts can offer freedom, but they also operate in a crowded market. Unlike primetime television, where millions may watch automatically, podcasts, unlike primetime television, where millions of viewers tune in at the same time, podcasts require people to actively search, subscribe, and stay interested. The reunion with Matt Lucas brought attention at first, especially from fans who remember their earlier success on Little Britain. That show had once made them two of the biggest names in British comedy. However, the media world in 2026 is very different from the early 2000s. Audiences are more sensitive to issues of language, respect, and social responsibility. Humor that was once seen as bold can now be viewed as outdated or insensitive. For Walliams, this shift in culture created a challenge. Every joke was now examined through the lens of his past controversies. Listeners were not just hearing comedy. They were also thinking about leaked transcripts, lawsuits, and workplace reports. This made it harder for him to separate his creative work from his public image. Even if the podcast had loyal followers, it did not carry the same weight as a weekly television program watched by millions. It showed that he was still trying to create, still trying to connect, but it also highlighted how much his platform had shrunk. Instead of commanding a national stage, he was now competing in a crowded digital space where success is harder to measure and easier to lose at the same time. His personal life became a subject of greater public interest. Fame often protects celebrities by surrounding them with powerful organizations and public relations teams. When those structures weaken, the individual stands more exposed. Walliams has spoken in the past about struggles with food, grief over his father's death, and the challenges of divorce. During the legal battle with Fremantle, his legal team mentioned that the stress had affected his mental health. Public discussions about mental health can create sympathy, but they can also bring deeper scrutiny. Some people saw him as a man under extreme pressure, while others believed that personal struggles did not excuse offensive behavior. This divided reaction is common in modern celebrity culture. Audiences are often torn between empathy and accountability. In Walliams' case, the contrast between his image as a joyful entertainer and reports of private anger or inappropriate comments made the story more dramatic. The more details that entered the public space, the harder it became for him to control the narrative. Social media amplified every headline. Supporters defended his years of charitable work and entertainment. Critics argued that patterns of behavior matter more than apologies. This ongoing debate meant that even during quiet periods, his name continued to generate strong reactions. Financially, Walliams remained secure. Years of television contracts, book royalties, and other business ventures had built a large personal fortune. Yet the entertainment industry runs on more than money. It depends on access to platforms. Without regular appearances on shows like Britain's Got Talent or partnerships with major publishers such as HarperCollins, maintaining influence becomes harder. Retailers reportedly reduced promotional displays of his books. Invitations to public events became less frequent. Even if older titles remained on shelves, the absence of new releases signaled a pause in momentum. Momentum is crucial in publishing. Authors rely on steady output to stay visible. A gap of several years can allow other writers to take their place. In children's literature especially, trust is central. Parents, teachers, and librarians want to feel confident recommending books. Any controversy linked to the author can create hesitation. That hesitation affects sales, which in turn affects marketing decisions. The cycle can become self-reinforcing. Lower sales lead to less promotion, and less promotion leads to lower sales. This does not necessarily mean a career is permanently over, but it does mean rebuilding requires time, patience, and a change in public perception. The broader lesson of Walliams' story reflects the risks of modern fame. In earlier decades, private comments might have remained private. Today, microphones, smartphones, and digital storage create permanent records. Public figures operate in an environment where almost nothing is truly off the record. The phrase invisible microphone captures this reality. It suggests that anyone in the public, I must assume they are being recorded at all times. For someone whose career was built on spontaneous humor, this constant awareness can feel restrictive. At the same time, audiences increasingly expect authenticity and responsibility. They want celebrities to behave consistently, both on stage and off. When there is a gap between the two, trust can break quickly. Walliams' journey from beloved judge to controversial figure shows how fast that shift can happen. 10 years of positive visibility were challenged by a few moments of recorded speech. The scale of his previous success made the fall more dramatic. A lesser-known personality might have faced criticism without experiencing such a dramatic public reaction. But because David Walliams had become a household name, the scrutiny was far greater. When someone is seen as a national treasure, expectations rise. The public does not just expect talent. They expect integrity. Walliams had built his reputation not only on comedy, but also on writing stories for children that often carried messages about kindness, courage, and acceptance. This created a powerful brand identity. When controversies emerged, the issue was not simply about a television personality making inappropriate remarks. It was about whether the values in his books matched the behavior described in reports. This contrast made the situation feel more serious to many observers. In public life, perception can become reality. Once doubt enters a public mind, rebuilding confidence takes much longer than building in the first place. By 2026, his career stood at a crossroads. The large institutions that once supported him, major broadcasters, publishers, and event organizers, had stepped back. That does not automatically mean permanent exclusion, but it signals caution. Entertainment history includes many examples of comebacks, yet those comebacks often require visible change, time away from the spotlight, and a clear effort to rebuild trust. For Walliams, the path forward may depend on whether audiences are willing to separate his creative output from the controversies, or whether the association remains too strong. The media environment also plays a role. News cycles move quickly, and public attention shifts to new stories. Over time, intense focus can fade. However, digital records do not disappear. Articles, transcripts, and social media posts remain searchable. This means that any new project he launches may bring renewed discussion of past events. Another factor is generational change. Younger audiences are growing up in a world that values transparency and accountability. They are more likely to question celebrity behavior and less likely to excuse it because of fame. At the same time, they are also open to conversations about growth and learning. If Walliams chooses to address the controversies openly and demonstrate meaningful change, some may respond positively. Silence can sometimes protect a person from further criticism, but it can also create space for assumptions. Finding the right balance between privacy and public accountability is difficult. Celebrities must decide how much to share and how much to keep personal. In Walliams' case, Earlier legal documents and public statements already revealed aspects of his struggles. Whether he continues to speak about these issues may influence how the public sees him in the coming years. Ultimately, the story of David Walliams is not just about one man. It reflects how modern celebrity culture operates. Success can rise quickly through television, publishing, and media exposure. Yet, that same exposure creates vulnerability. One recording, one investigation, or one headline can shift a career's direction. Wealth can provide comfort, but it cannot guarantee affection. Public love is based on trust, and trust depends on consistent behavior. As of 2026, Walliams remains a well-known figure with significant past achievements. His books are still read, his television moments still replayed, and his comedy still remembered by many fans. At the same time, his name carries controversy that cannot be ignored. Whether he returns to a central role in British entertainment or remains on the edge of the industry will depend on time, public memory, and his own actions. What is clear is that the journey from celebrated star to questioned figure shows how fragile even the strongest reputations can be in an age where every word may be recorded and every action examined. Looking ahead, the long-term impact on David Walliams will likely depend on how both the public and the industry choose to remember this chapter of his life. Careers in entertainment are rarely simple straight lines. They move in cycles of popularity, criticism, reinvention, and sometimes redemption. In the past, many public figures have faced serious setbacks and later returned in new roles, often with a different tone or audience. For Walliams, one possible path could be focusing more on writing independently or exploring platforms that give him greater creative control. Another path can involve stepping back from children's entertainment and moving toward projects aimed at adults, where expectations and sensitivities are different. The key challenge will be rebuilding trust. Trust does not return through silence alone. It often requires clear acknowledgement of mistakes and visible change. At the same time, public memory can soften over the years, especially as new stories replace old ones in headlines. There is also the question of legacy. Before the controversies, Walliams' legacy seemed secure. He was remembered for his role on Britain's Got Talent, for his partnership with Matt Lucas on Little Britain, and for building a best-selling career in children's publishing. His books filled school libraries and bedtime routines across the country. Now, his legacy is more complicated. It includes success and laughter, but also criticism and controversy. Public figures do not get to choose only the positive parts of their history. All aspects become part of the record. How future generations interpret that record will depend on what happens next. If he remains largely